I'm Madison, 28, an elementary school teacher from Boston with a passion for shaping young minds. My family trip to Hawaii last summer should have been a dream vacation, but it quickly turned into a nightmare when I discovered they forgot to book me a room. After years of being treated as an afterthought by my family, this was the final straw that pushed me to stand up for myself in a way that left them completely speechless. If you're watching this right now, drop a comment letting me know where you're tuning in from. Hit that like and subscribe button, and stick around to hear how sometimes being forgotten leads to the most unforgettable lessons. The earliest memory I have of feeling invisible in my family was during my 10th birthday party. My parents had organised a small celebration at our suburban Boston home with a homemade cake and a few decorations. Nothing extravagant, but I was excited nonetheless. Halfway through cutting the cake, my older brother Ryan burst through the front door waving an acceptance letter to a prestigious science camp. Within seconds, all attention shifted from my birthday candles to his achievement. My cake sat half cut on the table as everyone gathered around Ryan, celebrating his success. I remember quietly slipping away to my room, where I ate a piece of my own birthday cake alone. That moment perfectly encapsulates my position in our family dynamic. As the middle child between two extraordinary siblings, I've always occupied an awkward middle ground, not the trailblazing firstborn, nor the cherished baby of the family. My brother Ryan, now 32, followed our parents' footsteps into medicine and became a successful orthopedic surgeon at one of Boston's top hospitals. He's always been the golden child, the one whose achievement set the standard for success in our family. My younger sister Ashley, 24, took a different but equally celebrated path. With her natural beauty and charismatic personality, she built Yiki herself into a social media influencer with hundreds of thousands of followers. Her Instagram perfect life brings her lucrative sponsorship deals and constant admiration from our parents, who are surprisingly supportive of her non-traditional career despite their conventional backgrounds. Our parents, Diana and Robert, both successful professionals, Mum a corporate attorney, and Dad a financial advisor, provided us with every material advantage. We never wanted for anything tangible. What I lacked wasn't resources, but recognition. They didn't intentionally overlook me. They just became so captivated by my siblings' more visible accomplishments that my quieter achievements faded into the background. The pattern continued throughout my childhood. When I made honor roll, it barely warranted a nod because Ryan had just been accepted to an Ivy League university. When I won a regional essay contest in high school, the news was overshadowed by Ashley being scouted by a modelling agency. Even in family photos, I somehow ended up partially obscured, standing behind Dad's shoulder or cut off at the edge of the frame, as if my presence was an afterthought. To cope with this dynamic, I developed the classic middle child traits: becoming the peacemaker, the responsible one, the emotional support for everyone else. I learned to anticipate others' needs before my own, to make myself useful rather than noticeable. I became the family mediator, smoothing tensions between Ryan's intensity and Ashley's dramatic flair, all while my own voice grew quieter. My career choice wasn't immune to this pattern. While my siblings chose paths that guaranteed spotlight, I gravitated toward elementary education, a profession built on nurturing others. Teaching second grade at Oakwood Elementary became my sanctuary, a place where my contributions mattered visibly. My classroom became the space where I found the validation I craved, where small voices weren't overshadowed but celebrated. Last spring, I was nominated for Teacher of the Year in our district, a significant professional achievement that required years of dedication and innovative teaching methods. When I shared the news during a Sunday family dinner, my mother glanced up briefly from her phone where she was admiring Ashley's latest Instagram post and said, "That's nice, honey. Oh, Ashley, this photo of you at the beach already has 5,000 likes." My father added an absent-minded "congratulations" before asking Ryan about a complex surgery he'd performed that week. So when the family Hawaii vacation was announced 3 months ago as a celebration of my parents' 30th wedding anniversary, I allowed myself a small hope that this might be an opportunity to reconnect, to finally be seen as an equal member of the Walker family. I enthusiastically joined the initial planning discussions, researching cultural activities beyond the typical tourist attractions and suggesting authentic local restaurants. "We could take a traditional cooking class together," I proposed during one family video call. I found this great opportunity to learn from local Hawaiian chefs. "We've already booked a private chef for 2 nights at the resort," my mother replied, not even looking up from her notes. "And we've arranged for Ashley to do a sponsored post at that famous waterfall restaurant." When I offered to research transportation options from the airport, my father waved me off. "We've got it. Covered, Madison. The resort is arranging everything." Each suggestion I made was politely acknowledged, then promptly forgotten. I tried to tell myself it wasn't personal. They were just busy professionals accustomed to taking charge. But as the departure date approached, a familiar feeling of exclusion began creeping in. 1 week before our flight, the detailed itinerary email arrived in my inbox. I eagerly opened it, scanning the accommodations section for my room assignment. My parents had booked a luxury oceanfront suite for themselves. Ryan and his wife Jennifer had been given a similar suite on the same floor. Ashley had secured a corner room with panoramic views perfect for content creation. But there was no mention of my accommodation. Not a single word. I stared at my computer screen, reading and rereading the email, thinking I must have missed something. But there was nothing there, just a glaring omission where my room details should have been. It felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. After 30 minutes of disbelief, I finally picked up my phone and called my mother. "Mum, I just got the itinerary email, but there's no information about my room," I said, trying to keep my voice casual despite the knot forming in my stomach. "Oh, didn't we mention that?" Mum replied, her tone indicating this was a minor detail. "We thought you'd just share with Ashley. Her room has plenty of space." The family group chat had been buzzing with vacation plans for weeks. Ryan shared links to exclusive restaurants requiring reservations months in advance. Ashley posted pictures of tropical outfits she'd bought specifically for the trip. My parents discussed the anniversary dinner they'd arranged at the resort's most expensive restaurant. Throughout all these conversations, somehow the basic question of where I would sleep never came up. "But Ashley's itinerary says she has a standard room with 1 king bed," I pointed out, scrolling through the details. Again. "And she's bringing all her equipment for content creation." "You two will figure it out," Mum said dismissively. "You always do. Ashley mentioned she'd probably be out late most nights anyway for sunset shoots." The casual way she addressed the situation made it clear this wasn't an oversight. It was simply not important enough to warrant proper planning. My stomach tightened as I realised that even for our supposedly special family vacation, I remained an afterthought. That evening, I received a text from Ashley. "Mum says we're rooming together. That's not going to work with all my equipment. I need space for my lighting setup and backdrop. Can't you just get your own room?" I took a deep breath before responding. The resort is fully booked for those dates. That's why everyone secured rooms months ago. Her reply came quickly. "That's not my problem. I need my space for work. This trip is a huge opportunity for my brand." When I called the resort myself, my fears were confirmed. "I'm sorry, Ms. Walker, but we're completely booked for those dates due to a wedding and a corporate retreat happening simultaneously," the reservation agent explained. "We don't have a single room available." I called 3 other nearby hotels, with the same result. High season in Hawaii meant no last-minute accommodations within my budget. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at my already packed suitcase, a mix of hurt and anger building inside me. The next day, I attempted to address the issue in the family group chat. "Hi everyone. There seems to be a misunderstanding about sleeping arrangements. Ashley can't share her room due to her equipment, and the resort is fully booked. What's the plan for my accommodation?" My father replied first. "We're paying a fortune for this vacation, Madison. Surely you and your sister can work something. Out for a few nights." Ryan chimed in. "Jennifer and I would offer our couch, but we specifically booked the oceanfront suite for privacy." This from my brother, whose trip was entirely financed by my parents, including the first-class flights. Mum's response came last. "Let's discuss when we all get there. I'm sure the resort can add a rollaway bed somewhere." The dismissive tone of their responses made it painfully clear. My comfort and inclusion were not priorities. This wasn't a new revelation, but having it confirmed so blatantly still stung. I found myself wondering why I'd been invited at all. As the departure date approached, the excitement I should have felt was replaced by anxiety. I packed my suitcase methodically, including the new sundresses and beach hat I'd purchased specially for this trip. I tucked in the small gifts I'd bought for each family member: a rare Hawaiian coffee blend for Dad, artisanal bath products for Mum, a vintage Aloha shirt for Ryan, and locally made jewellery for Ashley and Jennifer. Despite everything, I still wanted this trip to be special for everyone. The night before our flight, I called my best friend Zoe. "They seriously didn't book you a room?" she asked, her voice rising in disbelief. "That's beyond inconsiderate, Madison. That's just wrong." "Maybe I'm overreacting," I said, though I didn't really believe it. "Maybe there's a perfectly reasonable explanation." "You always do this," Zoe sighed. "You make excuses for them. At some point you need to stand up for yourself." "It's just a few days," I replied weakly. "I don't want to ruin the family vacation." "And what about your vacation?" Zoe challenged. "Don't you deserve to enjoy it too?" Her words stayed with me as I finished packing, placing my passport and boarding pass carefully in my carry-on bag. As I zipped up my suitcase, I couldn't shake the feeling that this trip was going to be a turning point, though I had no idea just how transformative it would become. Our family reunion at Logan International Airport was exactly as I'd predicted. Mum and Dad arrived first, dressed in coordinated vacation outfits and already wearing their expensive sunglasses, despite the grey Boston morning. Ryan and Jennifer pulled up in their luxury SUV, Ryan immediately launching into a story about a difficult surgery he'd performed the previous day. Ashley arrived last, fashionably late, wearing an outfit that looked straight from a travel magazine and rolling a matching set of designer luggage. I stood there with my practical suitcase and backpack, giving everyone warm hugs that were returned, with distracted pats on the back. Within minutes, the conversation had moved on without me. "We've been upgraded to first class," Ryan announced proudly, showing off his boarding passes. "One of my patients works for the airline." "That's wonderful." "Honey," Mum beamed. "Ashley, didn't that travel company upgrade you too?" Ashley nodded, flipping her perfectly styled hair. "Yeah, they want me to tag them in my posts. Business class with extra legroom." No one bothered to ask about my seat, which was in regular economy, row 32, middle seat. I'd purchased my own ticket since the family travel agent had forgotten to include me in the group booking. The 6-hour flight to Honolulu passed slowly. While my family members deplaned from their premium cabins refreshed and energized, I emerged from economy feeling cramped and tired. We regrouped at baggage claim, where my parents had arranged for a luxury van to take us to the resort. "Madison, would you mind sitting in the back row?" Mum asked as we loaded our luggage. Ryan and Jennifer get carsick in the back, and Ashley needs the window seat for her social content. I found myself squeezed into the third row between suitcases that wouldn't fit in the trunk, while everyone else spread out comfortably in the spacious middle rows. As we drove along the spectacular coastline, I could barely see the views past Ashley's head as she filmed everything for her Instagram stories. The Hanalei Bay Resort was even more beautiful than the pictures, a sprawling property with lush, tropical gardens, multiple swimming pools and direct beach access. The open-air lobby featured soaring ceilings with traditional Hawaiian architectural elements and offered breathtaking ocean views. Under different circumstances, I would have been awestruck. The check-in process began smoothly. My parents approached the front desk first, receiving warm greetings from the staff. "Welcome to Hanalei Bay Resort, Mr. and Mrs. Walker. We have you in our oceanfront presidential suite with the anniversary package you requested. Congratulations. On 30 years. The clerk handed them an elegant folder containing their room keys, along with leis and welcome cocktails. Ryan and Jennifer were next, receiving similar VIP treatment and being informed about their suite's private hot tub. Ashley stepped up confidently. Ashley Walker, social media influencer. I should have the Corner Premium King with the content creator package. Of course, Ms. Walker, the clerk smiled, presenting her with a specialised welcome package that included information about the best photography locations on the property. Then it was my turn. I approached the desk with a tight smile. Madison Walker, I said simply. The clerk typed on his computer, then frowned slightly. I'm not seeing a reservation under that name. Are you part of the Walker family group? Before I could answer, my mother stepped in. She'll be staying with her sister, Ashley. We discussed this with your booking agent. Ashley immediately protested. Wait, what? I can't share my room. I have all my equipment set up, the brand partnerships, are counting on specific backdrop aesthetics. The clerk looked uncomfortable as my family began arguing in front of him. Other guests turned to stare, and I felt my face burning with embarrassment. Perhaps we could look into a roll-away bed, the clerk suggested diplomatically. Our rooms are at capacity with the wedding party this weekend, another staff member whispered to him, just loudly enough for me to hear. After several uncomfortable minutes of debate, my father made an executive decision. She can stay in the living room of our suite. There's a pull-out couch. This was presented not as a question, but as the final word on the matter. I stood there, a grown professional woman of 28, being discussed as if I were a piece of luggage they'd forgotten to account for. We made our way to my parents' suite, which was undeniably spectacular. A massive space with panoramic ocean views, a full kitchen, dining area, and separate bedroom. The living room featured an elegant sectional sofa that apparently converted to a bed. See? This will be fine, my father said dismissively, dropping the subject as if it were resolved. While my family dispersed to explore their accommodations, I investigated my supposed sleeping space. The pull-out mechanism was stiff, requiring significant effort to open. When I finally got it extended, I discovered why. The metal frame was bent in one corner, causing the entire mattress to slope dramatically. Several springs poked through the thin mattress, and a suspicious stain marked one side. I sat down on the edge of the broken bed, and it sagged alarmingly under even my slight weight. There was no way anyone could sleep on this for 6 nights. When I pointed this out to my parents upon their return, my father shrugged. The resort is fully booked. Just make it work, Madison. Don't be difficult. That evening, I found myself sitting alone on the beach as the sun set, watching families and couples enjoy their vacations. I texted Zoe photos of the broken pull-out couch. This is ridiculous, she replied immediately. They're treating you like you don't matter. It's always been this way, I wrote back. I just never wanted to admit it. So what are you going to do about it? Zoe challenged. I stared at her message for a long time, watching the waves crash against the shore as darkness fell. What was I going to do? For the first time, I wasn't sure I could simply smile and endure it. Something inside me had begun to shift, like the first tremor before an earthquake. Our first dinner in Hawaii was at the resort's upscale seafood restaurant. I arrived at the designated meeting time to find my family already seated at a round table overlooking the ocean. They were midway through a conversation about tomorrow's activities. I've booked us the exclusive sunrise boat tour of the Napali coast, my father was saying as I slid into the empty chair. It's supposed to be breathtaking. That's perfect for my morning content, Ashley exclaimed. My followers will love those sunrise colours. Will we see whales this time of year? Jennifer asked, leaning into Ryan. Probably not, Ryan replied authoritatively. But there should be dolphins. I read that spinner dolphins are common in this area. I tried to join the conversation. I read that too. Apparently there's a marine biologist who sometimes joins these tours and the concierge mentioned we might see sea turtles too. My mother interrupted, not even acknowledging that I had been speaking. Ryan, didn't you do that research paper on sea turtles in medical school? The conversation shifted again, flowing around me as if I weren't there. This was a familiar feeling, being physically present but somehow invisible. I picked at my seared ahi tuna, appetite diminishing with each overlooked comment. When the waiter approached to confirm the next evening's dinner reservation at the resort's exclusive Hawaiian fusion restaurant, I heard my mother clearly say, "Just 4 main course reservations, please. The anniversary dinner." 4? I asked, unable to keep the hurt from my voice. "There are 6 of us." My mother had the decency to look momentarily flustered. "Oh, Madison, that restaurant is very expensive and it's really meant to be a special. A dinner for us with Ryan and Jennifer since they helped plan the anniversary celebration. Ashley has an influencer dinner that night with a hotel partner." "And me?" I asked quietly. "You can order room service," my father suggested, as if offering a treat rather than an exclusion. "Put it on our room tab." Across the table, I noticed Jennifer watching this exchange with a slight frown, but she quickly looked away when our eyes met. The rest of the meal passed in a blur of cheerful family conversation that somehow never included me. Back in the suite, I attempted to make the broken pull-out couch somewhat habitable, piling extra blankets on the sagging side to create a relatively flat surface. I could hear my parents in their bedroom, discussing the next day's itinerary in low voices. Just as I was settling in for what promised to be an uncomfortable night, my phone rang. It was my principal from Oakwood Elementary. "Madison, great news. The district committee has moved you forward as a finalist for Teacher of the Year. They were particularly impressed with your literacy program for ESL students. You'll need to prepare a presentation for the final selection next month." I was genuinely thrilled. This recognition represented years of dedication and innovative teaching approaches. When I ended the call, my parents had emerged from their bedroom. "Good news?" I told them, unable to keep the excitement from my voice. "I'm a finalist for Teacher of the Year." "That's nice, honey," my mother said with the same tone she might use to acknowledge that I'd found matching socks. "Oh, did Ashley?" "Cool. She texted that she's doing a sunset photo shoot with some local influencers." My father glanced up briefly from his phone. "Teacher of the Year, huh? Is there prize money with that?" "No," I replied, deflating. "Just recognition." He nodded, already returning to his email. "Ashley just landed a $10,000 sponsorship deal with that sunscreen company. Smart girl, making the most of this trip." I lay awake most of the night, the broken couch springs digging into my back, listening to my father's snoring through the partially closed bedroom door. Around 3 a.m. I gave up and moved to the balcony chaise lounge, wrapping myself in a blanket against the night air. Even in my discomfort, I couldn't help but appreciate the moonlight reflecting off the Pacific Ocean and the gentle sound of waves breaking on the shore below. When I finally dozed off in the early morning hours, I fell into a deep sleep born of exhaustion. I was awakened by bright sunlight streaming onto the balcony and the realization that the suite was completely silent. Checking my phone, I saw it was 7:30 a.m., much later than I'd planned to wake up. I hurried inside to find the suite empty. On the kitchen counter was a hastily scrawled note. "Didn't want to wake you. We left for the sunrise boat tour. We only had 5 tickets anyway. Back around noon." Mum. I stood there in my wrinkled pajamas, staring at the note. They had left without me for the main activity of our first full day in Hawaii. They hadn't even attempted to wake me or see if I wanted to join. The "only had 5 tickets" excuse was particularly telling. They had planned this exclusion from the beginning. My phone buzzed with a text from Zoe. "How's paradise with the family that forgot you exist?" Something inside me finally broke. Not in the way glass shatters dramatically, but in the way a dam gives way after years of pressure, suddenly but inevitably. Tears streamed down my face as I typed my reply. They left for the boat tour without me. Note said they only had 5 tickets anyway. "I'm done, Zoe. I can't do this anymore." Her response was immediate. "Finally! What are you going to do?" I stood in the empty suite, surrounded by my family's casually discarded belongings. My mother's designer sun hat, my father's expensive camera, evidence of their privileged existence where considerations like "where will everyone sleep" were too trivial to bother with for certain family members. "I don't know yet," I replied to Zoe. But I'm not spending another night on a broken couch or being treated like I don't matter. I showered and dressed, my mind racing with possibilities. For the first time in my life, I was considering putting my own needs first, regardless of how it might disrupt the carefully maintained family dynamic. As I sipped coffee on the balcony, watching happy vacationers on the beach below, an unexpected clarity washed over me. I had spent my entire life trying to earn a place in my family's attention, adjusting myself to fit into smaller and smaller spaces, both literally and figuratively. But what if I stopped trying to fit? What if I created my own space instead? With this thought, I picked up my phone again, not to text my family about their abandonment, but to search for alternative accommodations on the island. I was done, waiting for them to make room for me. It was time to make room for myself. I spent the next hour researching alternatives, scrolling through booking sites for any available rooms on the island. High season meant most mainstream hotels were fully booked or outrageously priced. Just as frustration began to set in, a small listing caught my eye. Hail Kai Boutique Hotel, authentic Hawaiian experience, last room available. The photos showed a charming property on the eastern side of the island, away from the commercial resorts of the North Shore where we were staying. It featured traditional Hawaiian architecture, lush gardens and private bungalows rather than conventional hotel rooms. The last available accommodation was an oceanfront bungalow with its own lanai. The price was steep. It would eat into my savings considerably. But in that moment, my dignity felt worth every penny. I booked it immediately, a strange exhilaration replacing my earlier despair. The confirmation email arrived seconds later, along with a personal note from the hotel owner, welcoming me and offering assistance with transportation. With my decision made, I moved quickly. I packed my suitcase methodically, making sure I hadn't left anything scattered around the suite. I considered leaving the family gifts behind, but decided to take them with me. I would decide later whether to give them. On a sheet of hotel stationery, I wrote a brief note. I found my own accommodation for the remainder of the trip. The broken couch and overall situation weren't working for me. I'll be in touch about family activities I might join. Madison. No accusations, no emotional language, just a simple statement of fact. I propped it against the coffee maker where someone would be sure to see it. I called a taxi service, and within 30 minutes I was loaded into a car heading across the island. As we drove away from the luxury resort with its manicured perfection, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders that I hadn't even realised I'd been carrying. "First time to Hawaii?" the driver asked, catching my eye in the rearview mirror. "Yes," I replied, though I'm not seeing much of it staying at the resort. "Ah, those big resorts," he shook his head. "That's not Hawaii. Where I'm taking you, that's closer to the real Hawaii." As we travelled from the North Shore toward the eastern side of the island, the landscape changed dramatically. We passed small towns with local businesses, farms growing taro and other traditional crops, and beaches where locals rather than tourists gathered. I rolled down my window, letting the fragrant tropical air wash over me. For the first time since arriving, I felt like I was actually experiencing Hawaii rather than an artificial version created for tourists. After about 45 minutes, we turned down a narrow lane lined with flowering trees and pulled up to a modest entrance with a hand-carved wooden sign reading Hail Kai. Unlike the grand lobby of the resort, the open-air reception area was small and welcoming, with comfortable rattan furniture and local artwork on the walls. A woman about my mother's age greeted me with a genuine smile. "You must be Madison. I'm Leilani, the manager. We're so happy you found us." She placed a fresh flower lei around my neck. Not the mass-produced ones from the resort, but one I later learned she had made herself that morning with flowers from the hotel gardens. "We received your booking just in time. We've been full for months, but had a last-minute cancellation this morning." "Must be meant to be," she said warmly. "Let me show you to your bungalow." We walked along a winding path through gardens filled with native Hawaiian plants, the sound of the ocean growing louder as we approached. My bungalow was the last one on the path, situated on a small cliff overlooking a private cove. The structure was traditional in style, but with modern amenities, featuring large windows that opened completely to let in the sea breeze. "This is our Ho'onanea bungalow," Leilani explained. "The name means to pass the time in ease and comfort. We think it's a perfect place to reconnect with yourself." The interior was spacious and airy, with a king-sized bed draped in light, natural fabrics, a sitting area with views of the ocean, and a luxurious bathroom with an indoor-outdoor shower. Garden. The private lanai had 2 comfortable chairs and a small dining table. "This is beautiful," I breathed, taking it all in. "We're having a welcome reception for guests at 6 p.m. in the garden," Leilani mentioned as she handed me the key, an actual key, not a keycard. "It's a good chance to meet other travellers and learn about activities in the area. Kai, the owner, will be there too. He leads some of our cultural experiences." After she left, I stood in the middle of the bungalow, a strange feeling washing over me. For the first time in as long as I could remember, I had claimed space that was entirely mine, chosen by me, for me. The room seemed to embrace me in a way that was both unfamiliar and deeply comforting. I unpacked my belongings, arranging them in the beautiful koa wood dresser. I changed into a sundress I'd brought but hadn't worn yet, feeling like this new space deserved a fresh start. Then, I stepped onto my private lanai and simply breathed, listening to the waves crash below and feeling the gentle trade winds on my skin. My phone, which I'd silenced upon arrival, buzzed insistently. I checked it to find a flood of messages from my family. "Mum. Where are you? We got back from the boat tour and found your note." "Dad. This is ridiculous behaviour, Madison. Call. Immediately." Ryan. "Mum and Dad are upset. What's going on?" Ashley. "OMG drama queen much? It's just a pull-out couch." I considered each message, feeling surprisingly calm. For once, their reactions didn't trigger my usual anxiety and need to please. I sent a single reply to the family group chat. "I'm safe and comfortable. I've found my own accommodation for the remainder of the trip. I'll be in touch about which family activities I might join." Then I turned my phone off completely, set it on the nightstand, and walked out onto my lanai. Below, I could see a small, pristine beach accessible by a private path from the hotel grounds. Without hesitation, I followed the path down to the yay. Sand, kicked off my sandals, and walked into the warm Pacific Ocean for the first time. The water was perfect, clear, refreshing but not cold, with gentle waves lapping at the shore. I waded in up to my waist, then immersed myself completely, feeling as though I was washing away decades of trying to be smaller, less needy, less present. When I emerged, the late afternoon sun warming my skin, I felt reborn. When I finally turned my phone back on that evening after the welcome reception, I found dozens of missed calls and increasingly frustrated messages. "Mom. Madison, this is completely inappropriate. You're ruining our family vacation." Dad. "Do you have any idea how worried your mother is? Call immediately." Ashley. "Way to make everything about you. Mum's crying." Ryan. "Where exactly are you? This isn't like you, Madison." The guilt tactics were familiar. I'd seen them deployed countless times when anyone disrupted the family's carefully maintained image, but for once, they didn't have their usual effect on me. I had spent the past few hours enjoying a wonderful reception in the hotel's garden, meeting fascinating fellow travellers and learning about the island from people who actually lived there. I composed a careful response. "I understand you're concerned, but I'm absolutely fine. I've checked into a small hotel on the eastern side of the island where I have my own proper accommodation. I'm safe, comfortable, and actually enjoying myself for the first time since we arrived. I'm happy to meet up for some family activities, but I needed a space of my own where I'm not an afterthought. This solution works better for everyone." The response was immediate. My phone rang, my mother calling. I took a deep breath and answered. "Madison Elizabeth Walker, what on earth are you thinking?" she demanded, her voice sharp with anger and something that might have been genuine concern. "I'm thinking that I deserve better than a broken pull-out couch and being excluded from family activities," I replied, keeping my voice calm. "We didn't exclude you. You were asleep this morning." Mum, the note literally said you only had 5 tickets. You never intended for me to come along. Well, the bookings were made months ago and— Exactly, I interrupted, something I rarely did with my mother. Everything was planned months ago without considering me, just like my room situation. She paused, seemingly thrown by my directness. Madison, we're a family. Families make accommodations for each other. You're being very selfish right now. Is it selfish to want a bed that isn't broken? To be included in family activities? To be considered during planning? You're overreacting to a minor oversight. It's not an oversight when it's a pattern, I said, surprising myself with my firmness. I'm not coming back to sleep on that couch or be treated like I don't matter. I've paid for my own accommodations, and I'm finally enjoying Hawaii. I'd still like to see everyone and do some things together, but this arrangement works better for me. After several more minutes of attempted guilt-tripping met with my newly discovered resolve, my mother switched tactics. Your father and I will cover a proper room at our resort if you come back, she offered. We'll figure something out. Why wasn't that an option before I left? I asked. This isn't about the money, Mom. It's about the fact that no one considered my needs important enough until I stood up for myself. The conversation ended unresolved, with my mother clearly frustrated by her inability to bring me back in line. Similar calls followed from my father and Ryan, each attempting different approaches to convince me to return. Surprisingly, it was Jennifer, Ryan's wife, who sent the most thoughtful message. Madison, I just wanted to say I understand why you left. I've noticed how you're often overlooked in family situations, and I should have said something sooner. Take the space you need. If you'd like to meet for coffee, just the two of us sometime this week, I'd love that. Her message touched me deeply. Perhaps I had an ally I hadn't recognized. The next morning, I woke naturally with the sunrise, the sound of waves and birdsong filtering through my open windows. I joined a small group of hotel guests for a beachfront yoga session, led by a local instructor, followed by a breakfast of fresh tropical fruits, homemade banana bread, and Kona coffee served in the garden. As I was finishing breakfast, a man, about my age, approached my table. You must be Madison. I'm Kai, the owner. My mother mentioned you joined us rather spontaneously yesterday. Kai, I learned, had grown up on the island and taken over the boutique hotel from his parents 5 years ago. After studying hospitality management in California, he'd returned home with a mission to create authentic experiences for visitors who wanted to know the real Hawaii. Most people who come to Hawaii never leave their resorts, he explained. They might as well be anywhere with a beach and palm trees. They miss the heart and soul of these islands. When he learned I was a teacher, his face lit up. Perfect. You'll appreciate this. I'm leading a small group to visit a traditional loikalo, a taro field, this afternoon. It's part of an educational initiative to preserve traditional Hawaiian farming practices. Would you like to join us? The invitation was the first of many experiences that would transform my time in Hawaii. Over the next 2 days, I immersed myself in the authentic culture of the island in ways I never would have at the resort. I learned about traditional farming practices, participated in a lei-making workshop with a local kupuna, elder, and joined a community potluck where residents shared their favourite dishes and stories. During a snorkeling trip to a secluded cove known mainly to locals, I discovered an unexpected passion for underwater photography. Kai had loaned me a waterproof camera, and I found myself captivated by the vibrant coral ecosystems and colourful fish. My photos, though amateur, captured moments of beauty that felt symbolic of my emerging self. Each new experience introduced me to people who accepted me immediately for who I was, not as Ryan's sister or Ashley's less interesting sibling, but as Madison, a person with her own interests, thoughts, and value. I still received daily texts from my family, ranging from my father's terse demands to my mother's increasingly concerned inquiries. I responded to each with brief but polite updates, making it clear I was safe and enjoying myself. I agreed to join them for a luau at their resort the following evening, setting my first boundary by specifying that I would meet them there rather than spending the day with them beforehand. On the 3rd morning of my stay at Hail Kai, Kai invited me to join him for a hike to a sacred waterfall that few tourists ever saw. It's on private land belonging to my family, he explained. It's where I go when I need to think or make important decisions. The hike was moderately challenging, winding through dense rainforest alive with the sounds of birds and rushing water. As we walked, Kai shared stories of growing up on the island, of the legends associated with different locations, and of his own journey to find his place in a changing Hawaii. When we reached the waterfall, I understood immediately why. He considered it sacred. Water cascaded 70 feet down a volcanic rock face into a crystal-clear pool surrounded by ferns and flowering plants. The mist created rainbows that appeared and disappeared in the shifting light. The ancient Hawaiians believed certain places have mana, spiritual power, Kai explained as we sat on a rock overlooking the pool. They weren't wrong. Some places do speak to your soul if you're quiet enough to listen. In that peaceful setting, with the rhythmic sound of falling water creating a natural meditation, I found myself reflecting on my family dynamics with new clarity. I realized I had spent years trying to earn love that should have been freely given, adjusting myself to fit others' expectations rather than growing into my authentic self. You know, I said to Kai, I've spent my whole life feeling like I was too much and not enough at the same time. Too needy for wanting attention, not successful enough to deserve it. He nodded thoughtfully. There's a Hawaiian concept called pono. It means righteousness, but also balance and harmony in relationships. True pono can't exist when one person constantly diminishes themselves for others. That concept resonated deeply with me. The imbalance in my family relationships had created a constant disharmony that affected everyone, not just me. By accepting less than I deserved, I had actually enabled patterns that weren't healthy for any of us. As we hiked back down the mountain, I felt a profound shift in my perspective. The issue wasn't just about a forgotten hotel room, it was about years of accepting a role that diminished me and my responsibility to change that pattern. That evening, I received an unexpected text from Ryan. Can we talk? Just the two of us. I'll come to you if that's easier. It was the first time any family member had offered to accommodate me rather than expecting the reverse. Progress, however small, was beginning. After careful consideration, I suggested meeting my family at a neutral location, a beachfront restaurant roughly halfway between our accommodations. I arrived early, securing a table with a spectacular sunset view, and ordered a tropical mocktail to calm my nerves. They arrived together, looking somewhat out of place in their resort attire among the more casual local crowd. I could read the mixture of emotions on their faces: concern, irritation, confusion, and perhaps a hint of guilt. After awkward greetings and everyone settling in, an uncomfortable silence fell over the table. I decided to break it directly. "Thank you for coming," I began. I know my decision to find my own accommodation was unexpected, but it was necessary for me. "Madison," my father started in his authoritative tone, "I understand you were unhappy with the sleeping arrangements, but disappearing like that was completely inappropriate and inconsiderate." I took a deep breath. "Dad, what was inconsiderate was not ensuring everyone in the family had proper accommodations for a trip planned months in advance." "We assumed you and Ashley would work something out," my mother interjected. "You've always been so flexible." "That's exactly the problem," I said quietly. "I've always been flexible. I've always accommodated everyone else's needs and preferences, while mine were treated as optional. The broken pull-out couch was just the final straw." Ashley rolled her eyes. "So dramatic. It's just a bed." "It's not just about the bed, Ashley," I replied, maintaining my composure. "It's about what it represents. Let me ask you all something. Did anyone consider where I would sleep when planning this trip? Did anyone think about including me in the boat tour? Did anyone even notice that I wasn't included in the anniversary dinner reservation?" Their uncomfortable expressions told me everything. "The truth is," I continued, "I've spent my entire life feeling like an afterthought in this family. My achievements are acknowledged with distracted 'that's nice' comments, while Ryan's and Ashley's are celebrated extensively. I'm excluded from plans or expected to squeeze myself into whatever space is left over. I've accepted it for years because I thought that's what family meant, making sacrifices for each other. but the sacrifices have only ever gone one way. Ryan shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Madison, I had no idea you felt this way. How could you not know? I asked, not accusingly but genuinely curious. How could you not see it? I guess. He hesitated. I guess I never really thought about it. You've always been so self-sufficient, so undemanding. Because I learned early on that my demands weren't considered important, I explained. Do you remember my 10th birthday party? I recounted the story of my interrupted celebration, watching realization dawn on their faces. I shared other examples, milestones overlooked, achievements minimized, needs dismissed. With each example, I could see them beginning to understand the pattern that had been invisible to them, but painfully clear to me. My mother's defense gradually crumbled. We never meant to make you feel less important, she said, her voice uncharacteristically small. You were always so capable, so independent. I guess we took that for granted. The thing is, Mum, I replied gently, I became independent because I had to, not because that's who I naturally am. I adapted to fit the space I was given. My father, usually quick with justifications, sat in uncharacteristic silence. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a note of genuine regret I'd rarely heard. I'm sorry, Madison. We failed you. I failed you. The simple acknowledgement was more powerful than any elaborate apology could have been. It created an opening for honest conversation that continued through dinner, each family member gradually recognizing their role in the dynamic that had hurt me for so long. Ryan admitted he'd been so caught up in his own achievements that he'd never considered how the disproportionate attention affected me. Ashley, after initial defensiveness, acknowledged that she'd sometimes intentionally drawn attention away from me out of her own insecurity. The truth is, she confessed, I've always been jealous of how genuine you are. You became a teacher because you wanted to make a difference, while I chose a career based on getting attention. Sometimes it's easier to keep the spotlight if everyone else stays in the shadows. By the time dessert arrived, the conversation had shifted from blame and defense to tentative plans for change. My mother suggested a family counseling session when we returned home. My father promised to be more mindful of including everyone equally. Small steps, but meaningful ones. I'd like to invite all of you to visit me at Hale Kai tomorrow, I offered. The owner, Kai, is leading a traditional Hawaiian ceremony about family connections. I think it might be meaningful for us. To my surprise, they agreed. The next day, my family arrived at my boutique hotel, visibly out of their element, away from the manicured resort environment, but making an effort. Kai welcomed them warmly, giving them the same attention he showed all his guests. The Ho'oponopono ceremony he led us through, a traditional Hawaiian practice of reconciliation and forgiveness, created a sacred space for continuing our healing conversation. Sitting in a circle on the beach, we each had an opportunity to express hurts, offer apologies, and voice commitments to change. In Hawaiian culture, Kai explained, family bonds, ohana, are sacred, but they require active nurturing from everyone. True harmony comes from each person being fully seen and valued. The ceremony concluded with each of us receiving a small koa wood carving of a circular shape, representing continuous balanced connection. I noticed my mother wipe away tears as Kai explained its significance. For the remaining days of our vacation, we created a new arrangement. I maintained my independent accommodation, but joined my family for selected activities. Sometimes the entire group, sometimes smaller combinations. Ryan and I spent an afternoon exploring tide pools together, having our first real conversation in years. My father and I took a sunset sail, where he shared vulnerabilities I'd never known he carried. Ashley invited me to help with one of her photo shoots, genuinely valuing my creative input. The most poignant moment came when my mother visited, my bungalow alone, sitting with me on my private lanai as we watched the ocean. This place suits you, she said, looking around at the beautiful but unpretentious accommodation. It has authenticity, just like you. That might be the nicest thing you've ever said to me, Mom, I replied honestly. She reached for my hand. I want to do better, Madison. I don't want to lose you because we couldn't see you. When the vacation ended and we prepared to return to Boston, our goodbyes at the airport felt different. The hugs were longer, the words more genuine. We had begun a journey that would require ongoing effort, but for the first time, everyone seemed committed to the work. Back in my classroom at Oakwood Elementary 2 weeks later, I found myself sharing an important lesson with my second graders during our community circle. Sometimes, I told them, the bravest thing you can do is speak up when something isn't right, even if it makes people uncomfortable at first. Your feelings matter. Your needs matter. You matter. A small girl with eyesight glasses raised her hand. Ms. Walker, is that what you did on your vacation? I smiled, touched that she'd remembered my brief mention of my trip. Yes, Emma, that's exactly what I did. And you know what? It was scary, but it changed everything for the better. That evening, I received a group text from my family. They had scheduled our first family therapy session and wanted to know if the time worked for me. As I responded affirmatively, I reflected on how something as seemingly trivial as a missing hotel room had catalyzed a profound transformation in relationships that had been dysfunctional for decades. Sometimes the spaces we are denied lead us to claim the spaces we truly deserve. Sometimes being forgotten is the first step to being truly seen, and sometimes the most important room we need isn't physical at all. It's the space to be our authentic selves, valued and respected by those who claim to love us. Have you ever had to stand up for yourself with family or friends when you were being treated as an afterthought? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories about finding your voice and worth. Share this with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to claim their space in the world. Thank you for being here with me on this journey of healing and growth.